Hello, welcome to Breakfast Central. We apologize for starting a few seconds behind schedule. It's because of technical glitches beyond our control. Welcome to Breakfast Central. Yes, this is where we bring you everything you need to know the best way to start your morning. A wake-up coffee, the latest news, information, insightful discussions. We have a packed show for you today, as always, so you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned and stay with us. I am Benga Aboroa.
And I am Olive Emodi. Thank you very much for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. So many conversations. Rivers has seen different upgrades or different updates in the past 24 hours from people criticizing the actions of the president and asking about the constitutionality or otherwise of it. We've also seen people take to the streets, lots of notable figures, the likes of Hilda Dokubo, the likes of Sean George, asking why the president felt the need to call for a state of emergency in a state that was a peaceful state, and why he hadn't done that in northeastern Nigeria that has had to battle terrorism, right? But we'll come to that shortly. Yeah. Let's start off with Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. We did get reports that there was an attempt to recall the senator. There were videos on social media of people who were allegedly invited for an empowerment scheme, and they were asked to bring their voters card, their BVN and the likes. And they got there. Unfortunately, what they ordered was not what they got. It would seem that they were asked to append their signatures, and they wanted to use them as a plot to recall the senator. Now, let's take a look at some of the videos of people who were at the location.
Early morning, this early morning, we were informed that we should come for an empowerment. When we get to the field, we are asked to bring our voter's card and the VIN, the number here. So we now ask why, because we heard that we should come for the empowerment. So they gave us a form to fill. You fill with your VIN and pen your signature. Then most of us will refuse that we cannot do that because we don't know that an empowerment can be done in this way. So we now left the field.
I could be here for the recall of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan.
No, sir, we are not. We are here for an empowerment.
But we are not aware about the recall by some group of APC.
No, not at all. No. So we are here for an empowerment. We are not supposed to be here for an empowerment. And we are given an instruction to come with our voter's card. So that was the instruction given to us, that we should be here with a voter's card for an empowerment. No, there's something like recall. We don't have anything against our senator, for God's sake. So why did
Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan does have a lot of detractors, and they're hell-bent on seeing her downfall. This is very tragic for on so many grounds. You want to do a recall process, and then you're being shady about it under the guise of empowerment, giving them money so that they can. It's just. I have no words. I
hope we get to the root of this matter and find out who was behind this. We're not going to make any insinuations. We hope that they get to the matter, that the proper investigation is carried out. I'll get to find out the person or persons behind this, so they can be exposed for the fraud that they are. Recall that Senator Natasha was suspended a day after she submitted a petition against the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio. Ever since then, Natasha will do anything but keep quiet. She's been speaking and speaking quite loudly. Not only did she disclose this on television, what the sexual allegations or sexual harassment allegations on television, she's also spoken to other media outside Nigeria. We've seen her grant interview to the likes of BBC, Sky News, and her voice has been unwavering in telling her story and speaking her truth. And again, he that, has clean hands, he has nothing to fear, he that...
Exactly. Olive, one other thing that video exposes, just the level of poverty in Nigeria, the level politicians will go to weaponize poverty. You give a human being 2,000 naira, and then they would give you the Commonwealth for the next 4 years, or force you to do things that you might not willingly understand. So they're taking advantage of ignorance, lack of education, and also the poverty in the land, which is quite tragic, to say the least.
It's really, really sad to see this, and I mean, these are just all allegations. We hope that a proper investigation occurs and we get to the root of what the true scenario is. But one thing we can see is that Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan has the support of the people of Kogi State. They've all been speaking up. She has the support of Nigerians. A number of Nigerians have shown or lent their support to her cause on social media. The one thing that is important to point out is if the Senate knows that it has nothing to hide and that Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan lied, the least they could have done was grant her fair hearing. But now that they've refused to grant her fair hearing, the whole world is hearing about it. And it's just really embarrassing to be having this kind of conversations in 2025.
Now moving on to your second story in our wake-up conversation. Senate steps down motion on state of emergency. The Senate yesterday stepped down its first order of the day concerning a motion to approve the proclamation of a state of emergency in a river state until later in the day. One of the reasons the senator gave after plenary was that it wasn't a full house, and they would rather do it when you have.
How they know they have a deadline? They just have, I think, today left.
But let's take a listen to this to the senator. Very vocal exchange between two members of the House of Representatives on the issue of River State. Like you said, Olive, they have 2 weeks to communicate to the president if they are in support of the state of emergency or not. But you can say it's a foregone conclusion.
If we go back again to the state of emergency and the need for the state of emergency, what was the situation like in River State before the president invoked his powers to activate the state of emergency? The arguments we've seen from people living in River State and indigents of River State is that they had a decent, normal, regular life. People were going to school, people were going to work. Nothing was being hindered by governance was moving.
On the flip side, they say, the government just can't sit idly by. That we were moving towards danger and anarchy, so the government did it in order to prevent that.
Again, I bring up the conversation that the guest had yesterday when we had on Noja. He asked, who's in charge of securing the pipelines? Who's responsible for securing the pipelines? Is it Siminalayi Fubara? Is it the federal government? Did the federal government hire people who are in charge of securing the pipelines? Look, just every other day, there's so much happening in different parts of the country. And again, what this has activated is conversations about our system of governance and democracy. And democracy would be defined as government of the people, for the people, by the people. What do the people of River State say? Yesterday, in the interviews we had, we went to the random streets. This is not that we selected guests. We went to the streets in River State, interviewing them, doing random surveys and speaking to them. And all of them seemed to throw their support behind the governor. All of them said, we want our governor. If they tell our governor to go, we too were going home. They said they really...
And then when we also spoke to the analysts, most of them disagreed. But one thing they always said is, we don't get security briefs. We don't have the intelligence briefings of the president. Mr. President knows what in consultation with the service chiefs and the high military hierarchy, the reports he was getting. So maybe it was a preventive action. But and the legal side of it too, most people agree that even when former President Obasanjo invoked a state of emergency, he had no right to suspend or remove the democratically elected state governors. So that's it. And the Nigerian Bar Association, a lot of lawyers are fighting against this.
Well, a lot of lawyers except the AGF. The AGF has spoken in support of it, saying that the president, of course, had done what he needed to do, and it was well within his powers to not just have activated the state of emergency, but also to have suspended the governor as well as the House of Assembly members. Now, another conversation that comes up is beyond the suspension of all of that. Okay, yeah. Another question they asked is, what really is the specification for state of emergency as provided for in the Constitution? What happens? There seems to be, the court needs to make some interpretation and pronouncement as to what exactly happens when there's a state of emergency, because it does seem that there's a lacuna there in terms of, even with the suspension, is there any part in the Constitution that clearly says the president can suspend the governor or the House of Assembly members? We don't seem to see anything like that in the Constitution. So these are some of the conversations that have come up. And then they've also argued that it's one-sided because the parties in this drama, not just the governor, but also the former governor. What has been done to Nyesom Wike? Absolutely nothing. Anyway, but these are the conversations that we're going to be talking about. We also have, like I did mention earlier, some big names have championed the cries against the state of emergency in Rivers State. We have clips of Shan George, we have clips of Hilda Dokubo. These are not just actors, they're indigents, they're people who are affected by whatever decision is made in Rivers State government. So let's take a look at some of them. Clips to you much later before we wrap up the conversation today, but definitely it is one of the conversations we're looking at this morning. But these are the stories that we're exploring, and we want you to stick around to find out, you know, what the latest developments are. And I'm sure that this morning we'll start to unravel certain new information that we didn't know before now. All right, let's share with you our top stories this morning on Breakfast Central, and then we'll get into the conversations proper. This morning on Breakfast Central, federal government set to release Rivers allocations to new administrator, and this has come with its own set of criticism, wondering why this has happened just now. And Dangote halt fuel sales as Naira for crude deal stalls, another cause of concern here. Holding government accountable through digital education, we bring in Dan Bello to talk about his work so far. Senate defers state of emergency debate. We want to see exactly what the next steps will be in that regard, and we'll review the newspaper front pages this morning. Join us for all these and more. Nigeria's Senate has stepped down a motion seeking the approval of the state of emergency declaration in Rivers State by President Bola Tinubu over not being provided with official explanation. News Central's Agir Ibrahim reports on the latest development in the ongoing political crisis.
Of President Bola Tinubu's proclamation of a state of emergency in Rivers State was expected to be the first item for discussion on the day's order paper. But without much explanation, lawmakers stepped down the motion, delaying talks on the worsening political crisis in the oil-rich state. The motion, penciled to be sponsored by Senate leader Okpeyemi Bamidele, expressed concern over rising tensions in the state that have disrupted governance and limited the delivery of democratic dividends to Rivers residents. However, as proceedings progressed, Bamidele invoked Order 1B of the Senate Standing Orders, praying that the President of the Senate step down the debate and revisit it by 3 p.m.
That the first order of the day be stood down to enable us consider the second order of the day. I move the motion pursuant to Order 1B of our rules.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that the first order of the day should be stepped down to 3 p.m. to enable us to consider other issues. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. One man's voice cannot constitute the Senate.
Addressing the media after plenary, Ondo South lawmaker Jimoh Ibrahim explained that the delay was to allow for broader participation in the debate before the matter is brought to a vote.
The Senate is a democratic institution, and the Senate has given room for more members who is not aware of this yesterday, but got to know about it today, to be able to come tomorrow and hear their views. Democracy is about numbers, it's about participation. So what we are saying is that we can adjourn it tomorrow in order to give room for more people to come. We formed quorum today, 68 people who are signed the register. If you now accept 17 leaders of the Senatorate, we are more than a quorum. We could as well go on. But we don't want to say, oh, it was 3 o'clock they brought it, when members are already praying, they are fasting, and then there were not many people on the floor. That's the time they passed the proclamation. No. First thing tomorrow morning, information will go to other members. Some members are fasting, they are praying in their homes. Tomorrow they will be here, and then by 10 o'clock, we pick it up. We are in tendium with Mr. President.
The political standoff has resulted in the suspension of democratic institutions in River State for 6 months, with expectations that the period will allow aggrieved parties to resolve their differences and restore peace to the state. In Abuja, 4 News Central,
following the declaration of a state of emergency in River State, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu yesterday swore in the sole administrator of River State, retired Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibas, into office. President Tinubu swore Ibas into office at about 3 p.m. at the State House in Abuja. The brief ceremony was witnessed by the President's Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, the Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, a senior advocate of Nigeria, and the Principal Secretary to the President, Mr. Hakeem Muri-Kwala. So, we've just witnessed the swearing-in of the retired Vice Admiral, and it's funny that I wonder how the Constitution works. The state of emergency, I guess the name emergency means it has to come into effect as soon as possible, because the lawyers are arguing that you haven't gotten approval from the Senate and you already do the swearing-in. What if they don't approve? But I don't think that would happen in Nigeria's case.
Well, we don't know. The Senate might look at the pressure that it's getting from the public and decide that, okay, this is a lot of pressure, and we don't want to further aggravate the situation in River State. So that's one angle. The second question is, when we're swearing them in, which laws, what was the process? I know he was reading an oath. That oath is from where?
It's from, the chief law officer of the country is there, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, the AGF.
So he
is
composed
the #1 lawyer in the country. So he probably found, maybe, I guess it's the same type of oaths they use to swear in governors.
So that's the problem. It would show that there's some sort of a lacuna. Again, you go back to Section 305 and you're looking at, the provisions of state of emergency, and to ask what is the next step if they are administrating, if they are, the Constitution does not give us any clear provision to say this is what happens next when you declare a state of emergency and you suspend the governor and you employ his sole administrator. So this is what should happen next. What do lawyers do
in that case where there's a lacuna, or is it the Senate that would review the laws and
typically yes, there should be a review. These are part of the conversations that make for the push for the review of the Constitution. But then again, it's why they could also go back to the court again to ask that the court do an interpretation of what the laws are. Anyway, let's get to feel the pulse of people regarding this update, the state of emergency. Still an ongoing conversation, and let's get to feel the pulse of people. We have Niyi Omoniyi on standby to bring us reports. Good morning, Niyi. Where exactly are you, and what's the state there?
Niyi, for some strange reason, we don't have your audio. We know you're talking to us all the way from Port Harcourt. Yeah, so I guess we'll try and fix that. But it would be nice to talk to Niyi this morning. He's been in Port Harcourt, I believe, for the last 2 days, talking to people. It was a government house yesterday, feeling the pulse of the ordinary citizens in River State. I guess we have him back. Niyi Omoniyi, Good morning to you.
Yes, I can hear you now. All right, I was saying good morning from Rivers State.
Yeah, good morning. Nii, could you tell us what you've experienced in the last 24 hours in Rivers State? What's the mood on the ground there? Who have you been talking to? And what are people saying generally?
Okay, I can barely hear you a little bit, but I want to believe this is, you want an update. So I'll just start with, it's day 2 of 6 months that we're looking at here in Rivers State based on the state of emergency. And so far, we have not seen any changes as regards the normal activities that usually go on in Rivers State. The daily activities in the morning are the same, morning routines. People go about their normal duties. Schools are in session, except government workers, that a few of them are not going to work. Operations are the same. Vehicular operations is also the same. We don't have so much of security operatives on the roads as we have in other states in Rivers State, so you wouldn't see them just everywhere in Rivers State, just on specific areas, so checkpoint areas where they check vehicles and, just try to control traffic. Duties are almost the same here, but I want to believe all these are rested on the sole administrator resumption to the state and taking charge, taking over the aim of affairs. And I think that's when we will begin to see changes in some activities depending on the instructions he actually reels out. But from Rivers here, in fact, yesterday night at about 10 p.m.-ish, we were out trying to see if anything has changed, if the fun spot has been evaded or left, like people, and the nightlife was affected. But no, it wasn't affected. Everyone was just doing their normal duty. And they are saying, and I even asked the resident yesterday that even if the state of emergency eventually holds, do you think the people of Rivers State are going to react? And he was like, he was trying to be diplomatic about it and saying, oh, God will react on their behalf because they've been done unjust. Well, I'll just leave it at that. This morning, also news we've heard from this government house suggests that there's peace there. No issue also is happening there, although we plan to visit it in the later part of today just to, put our eyes to it and be sure that there is calm in the land, and also visit some areas across the state as well, speak to people and get their view. It's day 2 of this state of emergency. What next?
Thank you, Nii, for bringing us update from Rivers State. We look forward to hearing more from the people, and we'll still be exploring conversations about the declaration of the state of emergency in Rivers State, the legality or otherwise of it. We'll go on a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by a guest here in the studio. The recent declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State by President Bola Tinubu has sparked significant controversy between the federal government and various political leaders. On Tuesday, March 18th, President Bola Tinubu suspended Governor Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy, and the state legislature, citing escalating political tensions and pipeline vandalism in the oil-rich region. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, while addressing newsmen in Abuja, defended President Tinubu's declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State. He alleged that Governor Siminalayi Fubara orchestrated militant activities leading to pipeline sabotage and absolved FCT Minister Nyesom Wike of any involvement in the state's political crisis.
The President came out boldly yesterday to say the situation cannot be allowed to continue, a situation in which the critical economic life of the nation, what is giving lifeline to the nation, to be, criminally touched without any response from those who would ordinarily be expected to do so. There were what I would call telegraphing of the militants, I would say by the governor, and the reason I said so was when he beckoned to them that, he would let them know when it was time to act, to the militants. Let us say it was wrong. Did he come out to disown them? The answer is no. And a week after, they swung into action. you see or witness vandalization of oil pipelines.
Now, the People's Democratic Party Governors Forum, the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, the Nigerian Bar Association, have condemned the emergency rule, regarding it as an overreaching and undemocratic. Now, join us now is legal practitioner and human rights lawyer Inibehe Effiong. Thank you very much, and good to see you in person.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. Good to be here.
I don't want to, repeat what I had done off air, but it's good to have you.
Let's start with the constitutional legality, and I also want you to touch on what the chief law officer of the country, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, said in that clip we just saw. Does the President's declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State fully comply with the provisions of Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution, or is it overstretching its bounds? And what do you make of Mr. Lateef Fagbemi's comments about its constitutionality?
Let me start by the comments you have just heard, made by the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, who by virtue of Section 150 of our Constitution is the Chief Law Officer of the Federation and Minister of Justice. Lateef Fagbemi, for many lawyers in our country, is a practitioner who has distinguished himself, having prosecuted high-profile cases from lower courts all the way to the Supreme Court, distinguished himself over the decades. I know that many lawyers in our country look up to him. And when he was appointed as the Attorney General, some of us had some form of expectation that, okay, because he's not coming from a partisan background, he was a core professional, maybe we will see for the first time in a while an Attorney General who, when the situation arises, may be able to speak as a professional, devoid of the partisan leaning that his predecessors were confronted with. But the comments he has made is quite disappointing, coming from the Attorney General of the Federation.
Which specific comments?
First, for the AGF to insinuate that Governor Fubara instigated the bombing of the pipeline. If they have an intelligence, if there's an intelligence report before the president, or evidence before the president, showing that Governor Fubara has a hand in the blowing of the pipeline, they should come out and say so. But to say that he had told his supporters that when it is time, he will lead from the front, which by my own construction is simply saying, when it is time for us to fight or protest, I'll be part of it. To now construe that to mean that it is the governor who blew the pipeline, or it's the governor who sent militants to blow the pipeline, is the worst act of mischief.
You said the governor didn't make statements to
how many crimes in Nigeria has Tinubu condemned or spoken about? Since Tinubu was sworn in on the 29th of May, almost 2 years ago. How many acts of vandalism in our country has Tinubu spoken about? The women that have been killed, farmers that have been killed in Ondo State now. Protest was taking place yesterday. Has Tinubu come out to address it? Should we now say that it's Tinubu that is sponsoring the killing in Ondo State? The killings we are seeing across the north. Has Tinubu spoken about it? So if the yardstick is now that when a crime takes place in a state and the governor of that state does not come out to condemn it, the governor is liable. Is it Fubara that appointed the Inspector General of Police? Is it Fubara that has control over the Chief of Naval Staff, the Chief of Air Staff, the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff? Is it Tinubu that awarded pipeline protection contract? So, sorry, Fubara. Is it Fubara? Is it the governor? Or is it saying that Fubara should have carried an AK-47 to protect the pipeline? This is a baseless statement by the learned Attorney General, quite unfortunately. And let's even assume for a second that Fubara has a hand in the blowing of the pipeline. That does not justify his suspension. He still has a constitutional immunity. Otherwise, you'll be saying that a governor or a president who is involved in crime should be suspended. And that will make, if Tinubu is now tired, if the Attorney General is now tired of the immunity provision under Section 308 that some of us have been opposed to, he should come out and say so. And he has to start with his appointment of the president.
Okay, so
but you cannot say that because you suspect that the person entitled to immunity is involved in crime, that will give you the power to remove the person. That is completely untenable.
So, I mean, part of the argument we've seen for and against this action, some would say that there's no clear-cut explanation of, or there's no clear provision in the Constitution that gives the president the power to be able to suspend a democratically elected governor. But there are also people who would argue that, you know, there might seem to be a lacuna in the explanation in the Constitution regarding what should happen when there's a state of emergency. So I want you to run us through, you know, your thoughts in that regard.
No, I disagree with the proposition that there is a lacuna in the Constitution on this matter. I will submit to you that, on the contrary, the wordings, the intent of the framers of the Constitution, the wordings of Section 305, and the intent of the framers of our Constitution are quite explicit. I submit that before we even speak about whether the president has power to suspend an elected governor, an elected deputy governor, and elected members of the House of Assembly, there is no circumstance in Rivers State that justifies the declaration of an emergency. Yes, the president has power under Section 305 to declare an emergency. But does it fall within any of the circumstances permissible? I'll refer you to Section 305, sub 3 of the Constitution. I can even read it out briefly. The circumstance that the president shall have power to issue a proclamation of a state of emergency only when A, the federation is at war. The Nigerian Federation is not at war. B, the federation is in imminent danger of invasion or involvement in a state of war. That is certainly not the case. See, there is actual breakdown of public order and public safety in the federation or any part thereof, to such extent as to require extraordinary measure to restore peace and security.
And does the pipeline, the explosion of the pipelines, does it not fall under the category?
An actual breakdown of public order and public safety in the federation or any part thereof. Is there an actual breakdown of law and order in Rivers State? Are schools not functioning in Rivers State? Are markets not running smoothly in Rivers State? Are civil servants not going to work? Are taxi drivers not doing their businesses? Are courts not sitting? Before this proclamation was made, can you show me any indication that activities were not running in Rivers State smoothly?
And one of the arguments they used as antecedents, they said this happened twice in a democratic administration under former President Obasanjo. And, you know, the lawyers and the MBA, they didn't test the constitutionality of this. So Mr. Obasanjo got away with this. So therefore, it's, it's open season, and President Tinubu has done the same thing. So
I was just concluding on the point that even on the basis of Section 305, I haven't seen anything that justifies declaring a state of emergency in Rivers State. I have not. People are not being slaughtered on the streets. And you cited the Obasanjo example. Who is General Obasanjo? He's a general, he served as the military head of state, and you don't expect someone who was in the military, someone who benefited or staged a coup to become president, to now say that the only language he understands is different from what he did. This sole administrator thing is an invention of the military. Are you surprised that even the person Tinubu has appointed, President Tinubu has appointed, Vice Admiral Ibok, is someone with a military background? Why do you think it is so? Nigerians should ask for a second. Why is it that every time a sole administrator is appointed, including the one that President Obasanjo appointed in Plateau State, it was a military general? Why is it always a military person? Because the very idea of removing a democratically elected institution or person is a...
Yeah, but these are retired military personnel.
He's still a military officer, whether retired or serving.
Now, what do you say to people that say, you know, president of the country, commander-in-chief, is responsible for the security and lives of Nigerians. Therefore, he anticipated, because of the lack of cooperation between the members of the State House of Assembly and the governor, and the ups and downs, the word of the type of language, the rhetorics that was used, that what he did was to prevent, because he anticipated that all of this was going to come to a head, a very violent head. So in order to prevent this from happening, he's been proactive. He's been proactive.
So just to add some context to that as well, since we're looking at
there is nothing proactive about what
Section 305
has done.
Section 305 subsection 3 paragraph E says there's an occurrence, and it's, I mean, running through the options, it said there's an occurrence or imminent danger or the occurrence of any disaster or natural calamity affecting the community of a section or a section of the community in the Federation.
Yes.
So can they argue that maybe the possibility...
Imminent.
Yes, imminent.
When did the imminency arise?
Well, maybe days before or a day before the proclamation.
When did the imminence, there has to be either an actual breakdown of law and order or an imminent breakdown of law and order.
Pipeline vandalism.
But how about the one in Bayelsa? Why has the Bayelsa State Governor not been suspended?
All right.
You cannot have it both ways. Since Tinubu became president, thousands of Nigerians have been killed across the north and other part of the country. Why has Tinubu not suspended himself? You cannot say that because there's a security breach in a state, the governor of that state has to be removed, and the security breach all throughout the country, and the president is still in office. And who gave him the power to remove a governor? Because by virtue of our constitution, section 180 is clear on tenure of office of governor. You read it along with section 189. There are 4 clear instances where the tenure of office of a governor can be truncated either permanently or by other means. And that is by reason of death. Fubara is alive. Guess what? Governor Fubara is not dead, he's alive. The deputy governor is not dead, he's alive. Members of the assembly are alive. Resignation. I've not seen Fubara's resignation letter. I don't know if Tinubu has seen it.
No, not yet.
Permanent incapacitation, section 189. That is where the governor is so sick, and the medical board set up by the State Executive Council.
And he has not yet been impeached.
And then it is examined and shown that he can no longer discharge his duties, and he has his medical practitioner in that board, and then they reach a conclusion that he's now permanently incapacitated. And the cabinet can vote to remove him.
Okay,
The other one is impeachment, section 188.
Which is what they've been
None of this has happened.
All right.
None of this has happened. So who gave Tinubu the power to remove the head of a subnational government?
We'll come to talk about what the options are, if there are any options, again, the remedies. But let's bring in Nyesom Wike into the conversation. Some of the arguments we've seen will be people saying that Nyesom Wike, that the president has been unfair in the sense that he's leveling punishment to Fubara and the rest, but has left Nyesom Wike to go scot-free. Do you think that Nyesom Wike should have been suspended or retired? And it seems that with the way that he's carried along, many will say that he's more powerful than his political party, and in some sense, maybe he has the government under control. These are some of the statements we're hearing, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Tinubu is not a disinterested party in this crisis. I read Fubara's statement, and I was amazed. He's still talking about the president with so much deference. I'm not saying the governor should not respect the president, but come of it, you are the head of a federative unit. You are the chief executive officer of a state. The head of a national government has removed you as the head of a subnational government. You are still saying, Mr. President, Mr. President. Tinubu has taken sides. He has never been neutral in this crisis. In which universe does a president tell a governor that commissioners who have publicly expressed their opposition to the appointer resign from your cabinet because they are aligning with your predecessor, that you must bring them back to the cabinet? Whereas under the constitution, and those who are saying Tinubu is trying to respect which constitution are they talking about? Under the constitution, guess what? The power to appoint a commissioner is gubernatorial. Only the governor can exercise it. And you have already interfered with the power of the governor to do that. You have interfered with the power of the governor to present budget. You have interfered with the power of the governor to even do it. In fact, they even insisted that not only should he recall the commissioners, they must be returned to their former
position. Why do you say that President Tinubu is not an interested
to their
party?
former ministries, the ministries they occupied? The Attorney General, former Attorney General of Rivers State, who had basically tried to frustrate the governor in court, you say you must bring him back as Attorney General. All the conditions that Tinubu said, only Fubara, everything was Fubara. Where is Nyesom Wike? It's just, guess what? I saw a video yesterday on his Twitter handle. Guess what? Wike is still minister. He has not been suspended. So this is the person that Tinubu has power to suspend because he appointed him.
But the Attorney General defended him yesterday.
Of course, because he's his party man.
I mean, he's a member of the PDP.
Who?
Nyesom Wike.
On record, officially.
Yes.
But we know we are not stupid. We know more than that.
Let's look at the broader implication of
I'm
this.
saying that there is nobody should be deceived that Tinubu is trying to resolve this as the father of the nation.
So why is he interested in this? Because you said he's
because
not an
Rivers people voted against him. He has to punish them. APC lost Rivers State in 2023. The evidence is there. APC lost Rivers State.
But
and this is also about 2027.
APC lost Lagos too. Why is it not punishing Lagos?
Why is he not punishing Lagos? Because Sanwo-Olu is the governor.
Now let's look at the broader implication of this. Your grouse is with Section 305.
This is malicious. Rivers people rejected APC. Let us deal with them. Maybe it's also about the allocation of the state in the light of the announcement yesterday.
Do you think that there's also a 2027 plan in the picture?
Of course, because Rivers people will still vote against APC. I believe most Nigerians will still vote against APC. This is about putting structures ahead of the next election. It has nothing to do with, because if you truly want to stop this crisis, one phone, 10 minutes conversation between Tinubu and Wike would have ended this.
Now let's look at the broader implication of Nigerian politics, because we've seen a situation where the president has removed a democratically elected governor, and most lawyers say, look, this is illegal, and the danger is that if the president doesn't like an opposition governor, he can remove him at the flimsiest excuse of a crisis. So as lawyers and as interested parties, what can civil society do to prevent this sort of judicial recklessness, as some have termed it?
No, executive recklessness.
Executive recklessness, as some have termed it, to prevent such a situation from reoccurring in the future?
I'm not sure some Nigerians even understand the severity of what has happened. You know, in this country, sometimes we make deception a state policy. Under Section 2 of the Constitution, guess what? It says Nigeria shall be a federation. You can fact check me. Consisting of states and the Federal Capital Territory. In a federal system of governments, the subnational government or the federating units are independent. They're autonomous. They don't have to follow the direction of the government at the center. Now, if Tinubu has the power to remove or suspend Fubara for 6 months, there will be nothing to stopping him from waking up tomorrow to remove the suspended 36 state governors. All he simply has to do is to manufacture a non-existent excuse, as he has done in Rivers. Because as I earlier explained, based on Section 305 sub 3, there is no factor as the second part of the Rivers.
Why have we left it up to this point? After Obasanjo did it twice, why didn't we address this issue constitutionally?
Unfortunately, there was an attempt to address it, but it failed. There was a lawsuit filed by the late Sage, Professor Ben Mwabweze. I read the judgment again last night, just to be sure that I'm on the right course, where there was a case filed between Plateau State of Nigeria and Attorney General of the Federation. After that emergency was declared by Obasanjo, an action was filed at the Supreme Court. Quite unfortunately, the Supreme Court refused. In fact, I read the comments of the justices. The lead judgment was read by Honorable Justice Legbo Kutugi, who later became CJN. And I read these 7 justices. They all expressed their sadness that they lost an opportunity to pronounce on the merit of the question, whether a president, while declaring an emergency, had the power to remove a governor. But if you read some of the orbital comments they made, the justices were not happy about it. They were saying indirectly that no, that can never be tolerated.
So does this then present an opportunity?
Why that pronouncement was not made, and I hope Fubara doesn't make that mistake, was that the Supreme Court said, well, you had been suspended. So how could you have bring an action on behalf of a state when you had no actual authority to authorize that suit to be filed? That was the singular reason on which the action was struck. The case of technicality was struck out, because the man who was sole administrator came out to say he did not authorize the bringing of the suit on behalf of Plateau State, because at that time, whether you like it or not, he was the one that had power to do so. It was on that basis that the Supreme Court refused to go into the merit of the case. That is why those who are saying Fubara should go to the Supreme Court, they are wrong. This is not a matter for the Supreme Court. Yes, governors of other states can do that through the attorney generals, okay? And then under Section 20 of the Supreme Court Act, an action brought pursuant to the regional jurisdiction of the Supreme Court under Section 232 of the Constitution must be brought in the name of the Attorney General. But in the Plateau's case, they did not bring it in the name of the Attorney General. Okay? Even though some of the justices said, well, since it is a state that is a party to the regional jurisdiction, therefore there is nothing wrong with that. But that was something that could have been avoided. So on technical and procedural grounds, there was no definite pronouncement. But we don't even need a court to pronounce on it. Guess what? The man that is the commander-in-chief today, if you recall, in year 2013, deprecated Jonathan for declaring emergency. He also condemned Obasanjo that Obasanjo had no power to remove.
Even though Jonathan didn't remove the governors.
Jonathan did not remove the governors.
He did not suspend the governors.
Guess what? People will say it's because you don't like Tinubu, that is why you are saying this. You can fact check it. In 2014, I actually wrote an article on this matter titled, Before you remove those governors, state of emergency, before you remove those governors. The argument I'm putting forward now, 10 years after, I am sure that I still have to argue this. There is no circumstance under the law that the president can suspend a governor. So the day that is allowed to happen, we can kiss our democracy goodbye.
Unfortunately, that has happened now. So what remedies are there? Is there any remedy for Fubara? Is there any remedy for the people of River State? It is left
for the members of the National Assembly, Senate and House of Reps, to decide where they want to stand, where they want history, what they want history to remember them for. If they allow this travesty to stand beyond today, then shame on them.
And do you have faith in the current assembly to...
I don't, but I hope they have faith in themselves. I don't have faith in them. Akpabio is the Senate President. He was my governor for 8 years. The only thing that Akpabio would not do for Tinubu is to remove himself as Senate President. Every other thing Akpabio will do. I know who this man is. So I don't, maybe at the House of Reps, but at the Senate, you may have more support for it at the Senate because Akpabio is the Senate President. And he's the man I can write book for in several volumes. I can write book about. Akpabio doesn't, so people say, oh, Tinubu does not like opposition. Have you met Godswill Akpabio? Have you met Akpabio? You say, oh, Tinubu does not allow people to, have you met Akpabio? In the world that Akpabio exists, the only rule that stands is what Akpabio says. So I suspect that there may be more support in the Senate. But let us not trivialize the matter or personalize it. They themselves must have a sense of history. Akpabio was the governor for 8 years. Would he have allowed the president to suspend him? He was the governor of my state for 8 years. From 2007.
All right.
Would he allow a president to suspend him? The National Assembly has to stop this. The PDP has to file an action in court to challenge this because it's governor that has been removed.
What of the attorney generals?
Of the states, yes. I've heard yesterday from reliable sources.
Maybe one of the PDP governors
PDP governors have instructed the attorney generals to file a suit at the Supreme Court.
Now, just before we go, looking at the current situation, Vice Admiral Ibok, retired, was sworn in yesterday as a sole administrator. And they've said, the federal government has said, you know, allocation will be released to River State. What budget is the sole administrator going to disburse this funds or work with this monies?
The Vice Admiral Ibok is an impostor. He's unknown to law. He's unknown to the Constitution of Nigeria. I don't recognize him. He's not the governor of River State. And before I even go to that, the other point I wanted to highlight is Section 11 of our Constitution. You can look at Section 11. Under Section 11 of our Constitution, where a House of Assembly is unable to carry out or discharge its legislative responsibility, do you know what is supposed to happen? The National Assembly is empowered temporarily to exercise the legislative functions of the House. But you know what? That is why people are saying, oh, lacuna, lacuna. I said there is no lacuna. Assuming that there is even crisis in River State that the House cannot perform, the National Assembly should have intervened. And in doing that, two things, please, quickly, two things. Number one, the Constitution says they shall not have power to remove the governor or deputy governor. Number two, insofar as the House is still able to sit, then you cannot say they are unable to discharge their responsibility. So assuming that two people
what about
are
the National Executive Council? That the
it is called Federal Executive Council, not Federal Legislative Council. The Federal Executive Council under our Constitution consists of the president, vice president, ministers, maybe the secretary of the government of the federation and the chief of staff. Yes, ministers. So they are people that are working with the president. It is just like state executive council.
It's an executive body.
So who gave President Tinubu the power to say he wants to make regulation for Rivers State?
That provision is not in the Constitution.
No.
Okay.
They don't have that power.
On the issue of allocation.
On the issue of allocation, I think this is where Nigerians must now be unanimous. And I challenge anybody. I'll be interested in hearing a lawyer say that I'm wrong. By virtue of section 120 and 121 of our Constitution, no governor nobody under any name or guise can appropriate 1 kobo belonging to a state without an appropriation law. And guess what? To see the hypocrisy, to see how sinister, how diabolical this action is, Tinubu, in his broadcast to the station, said that Fubara has not complied with the judgment of the Supreme Court. One of the reasons why the Supreme Court said that the allocation of Rivers State should be withheld was because, according to the Supreme Court, there can be no government of a state without a House of Assembly. And that Fubara did not recognize the House of Assembly, did not present the budget.
Yes, okay, he's now fired.
Wait now, this one is common sense. You don't need to be a lawyer.
They'll say it's on their emergency.
No, you don't need to be a lawyer. You are saying there is no House of Assembly. You did not present a budget. Now you have suspended the same House of Assembly. You have gone ahead to suspend the governor and deputy governor, and you now want to release the same allocation. You say Fubara did not present budget. Who will Vice Admiral Ibe present his own budget to, assuming it's even known to law? Under which budget will they now spend the withhold allocation? This is the travesty that we're talking about.
So, you know, very quickly on the final note, people who say that Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan's case was a test for Nigerians and that because they could see that, you know, that could easily fly, that's why this is happening in Rivers State. Is that a thought process that should agree?
I feel sad for Natasha, but I think I probably underestimated her. I've met Natasha at least once at a civil society gathering many years ago in Abuja. Go and look at her fight in that Jekuta steel. This woman is not a pushover. I think Akpabio is easily underestimated this woman. And it is sad that Nigerians have not stood up for her the way I expected. That women groups have not stood up for her, but I'm not surprised. She's fighting a monstrosity. She's fighting forces that have a lot of resources. And look at that is why people are saying, oh, Senator, how many of them even stood up? And it is sad in our country that those who are pretending to be in the opposition, from the minority leader of the Senate, to the minority whip, to the members of the Labour Party in the Senate, the PDP, the NNPP, not one of them had the courage. They pretend to be men. Most of them say they are men. Their masculinity could not be found. Not one of them could stand up to speak for this woman. Right. She has been suspended. I don't know why they're obsessed with 6 months. Well, Natasha was suspended for 6 months. You are now suspending Fubara for 6 months. We may wake up tomorrow, Tinubu has suspended Nigerians, expelled Nigerians for 6 months.
Wouldn't it be great if they can now adjust the term, the duration of presidency for another 6 months? That's a dry joke. But thank you so much, Inibehe, for joining us this morning. I mean, very sad realities that we have to face, and we would, of course, be exploring more of this conversation, what the implications are for the people in Nigeria. But let's share with you what's coming up next this morning on Breakfast Central. All right, we're going on a very quick break, and when we come back, we have more conversations. Stay with us. you for joining us. Let's review what the front pages of the newspapers are saying, beginning with the Punch newspaper. And on the front page of the Punch, the big story this morning is Rivers emergency rule. Federal government deploys 10,000 troops against vandals as opposition NLC protests. Fresh explosion in Rivers. PDP protests as AGF, APC threaten emergency rule extension. Sanwo-Olu unveils new blocks of classrooms in Ikorodu. Police confirm death of inspector, 12 gunmen in fierce battle. Mohbad's brother, friend arrested outside Lagos court. PDP tackles APC as Kogi constituents begin Natasha's recall. Naira for crude, fuel price hike looms as Dangote and NPCL talks fail. Minimum wage, NYC to suspend 307.6 billion naira on coppers mobilization. Stop military attacks on discos, Adelabu tells NSA. And final story, EFCC arrests Bauchi Accountant General over alleged 70 billion naira fraud. That's all on the front page of the Punch.
Okay, let's take a look at the Daily Independent newspaper. The headline on the front page there says federal government warns states where state of emergency. Federal government warns states where Nigeria's economic interest is at risk, says Fubara teleguided militants to blow up oil facilities. Rivers sole administrator may get state withheld allocation. An emergency rule front on Nigeria's constitution, says a former Transport Minister and also Governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi. And on the top of that, protesters storm Ondo Governor's office over fresh killings of 5 farmers by herdsmen. Emergency rule meant to capture Rivers and South in 2027, says the opposition People's Democratic Party. Fuel price hike looms as Dangote suspend sale in Naira.
Speaking of Dangote, now let's explore what this might mean for the petroleum sector. Dangote Petroleum Refinery has temporarily halted the sale of petroleum products in Naira, citing a mismatch between sales proceeds and crude oil purchase obligations, which are denominated in US dollars. The refinery's management stated that sales in Naira have exceeded the value of Naira-denominated crude received, necessitating the adjustment. NNPC is currently in discussions to potentially renew the Naira for crude arrangement, which began in October 2024. However, Dangote Refinery's reported challenges in securing agreed crude volumes under this deal and plans to resume Naira sales upon receiving appropriate crude allocations from the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. Now, joining us to explain what this temporary setback might mean and the impact on Nigeria's economy is Bola Tinubu. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Nice to be here.
So much distraction happening in the political space, only for us to get this update. What exactly does this mean? You know, what are the implications of this?
Well, what the gentleman is simply saying is that, look, there is a foreign exchange risk associated with my sale now. It's slightly different from a situation under the former agreement in which government has said, I will provide crude for you in Naira. Then if sale proceed is also in Naira, under that condition, there is no foreign exchange risk on the table. But it appears as if that is no longer in place. Maybe government has now started to, sell in foreign exchange to him. So if they're selling in foreign exchange, but his own output is being sold in Naira, there's an element of foreign exchange risk right there. So that is what the man is trying to fight. I believe it's just a fight, and that the two parties can resolve what is on the table.
I mean, you believe it's just a fight, and we often hear this. I don't want to sound like a broken record. When two elephants fight, is the people that suffer. And Nigerians are very mindful of every single Naira in their bank accounts right now. Does this have implications for the pump price of PMS?
Yes, it does, because it makes the price more unpredictable. Because of the dollar element that is right there. But at the same time, you see, the price modulation that we have seen in recent times, in which Dangote Refinery is able to say, oh, my price will be this much now, my price will drop to this. We have seen that drop coming all the way from a little over 1,000 naira to 800 and something naira today. That modulation will be more difficult to do under this circumstance. I do not think that Mr. Dangote himself believes that people will start now paying dollars to buy refined products from him in Nigeria. Essentially, he will be saying that people should not go and source foreign exchange from the CBN and come and pay him foreign exchange to buy the refined product. It's just putting up a fight right there to say, look, we had an agreement, government. Can you please keep to your side of that agreement so that things can continue to go on? Otherwise, if you pull out the supply from Dangote out of the market because people cannot raise the dollar to buy it, it will lead to some crisis, supply crisis.
When you talk about supply crisis, so we're expecting that this might impact the price of petrol. Are we expecting that this might also affect the availability of product? And then, does it also have any impact on our Naira, on our currency value?
Of course, if it affects the supply, then prices will go up because you are pulling out the supply that's been there. I mean, I took a drive in Lagos from Maryland all the way to Murtala Mohammed Road, that's towards Oyingbo, on Sunday afternoon. I found out that it was only the MRS stations that had queues. And MRS is the outlet where Dangote has been distributing. So there is an increased consumer confidence in the quality of the Dangote fuel, clearly. Now, when you take that supply off the table, it will have a direct implications for consumer choices and prices would be affected negatively. That is the reality out there. So and the issue of dollar, we now put dollar pressure put the Naira under pressure and may also have an implication for the exchange rate. This is where we were coming from. We are now going back to that same point. We are saying if we do a Naira for Naira, the amount of demand for dollar on the CBN window to import refined product will be reduced. Are we now going back to that period where we begin to exert more pressure on the dollar? That is the question we must be asking ourselves. And I hope that the parties can resolve this and we can have what we used to have prior to now.
So what will resolving it look like? We've talked about the problems, we've talked about the implication on Nigeria's economy, the implication on pricing, and the weakening of the Naira. So what would then be the way forward, and what role does the government have to play in this?
Simply go back to being able to provide crude in Naira to the gentleman. That is what it is. You can agree on what the rate is going to be, and then sell him the crude in Naira. That way, he has the predictability of his cost profile. Once he can predict his cost profile, he's able to also, predict or to fix his own selling price because he knows for certain what his cost price is. If he doesn't know for certain what his cost price is, you're putting him under a foreign exchange risk, and the consequences may be negative on the market.
Now, but some might argue that, marketers, there are also players in this industry, import this refined products and they use dollars. So it's just a fair level field for everyone because they've been talking about concerns of monopoly and all of that. What do you make of this?
Well, that is an argument that could be made. So if government is comfortable with it, if the reason they are doing this is that they want to level the ground, then he is also able to make whatever decision he wants to make. Is the government ready for that decision? That is the question right there. You see, the other part of this equation, which involves the government importation and other players importation, is not a particularly transparent space. We don't know exactly what are some of the things that are happening in that particular space. It's not transparent.
All right, let's talk about how we can achieve some sense of stability so we don't keep going around in circles. What future policies can be implemented to ensure that we don't have a recurrence of this sort of problems?
Well, it appears that the government was not ready for the crude supply when Dangote went commercial. We probably have pledged a significant part of our crude as at that time. Now, Dangote is here and is here for good, and it's a local producer. So I believe that we can now enter into an agreement that is more sustainable, crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, forgetting about the past situation when we were not ready to have that agreement. So that there could be futures, there are commitments. The guy knows what the crude is going to, how the crude is going to be priced over the next 2 or 3 years or 1 year, as the case may be, and is able to plan. So let's have a new agreement that is sustainable, upon which Mr. Dangote can plan, and upon which government itself can plan its own cash flow, as it were. With that, we will have stability in the supply of crude, and by extension, the pricing of the output by Mr. Dangote, as it were.
Well, Olojide, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts. We look forward to seeing an amicable resolution of this for the benefit of the Nigerian people and the Nigerian economy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Have a wonderful day.
All right. And now we have other conversations we're going to be exploring, looking at digital literacy and how we can hold the government to account. In Nigeria, a significant portion of the population, estimated at 31%, is illiterate, with millions of children out of school, posing challenges to economic stability and development and the understanding of politics. In northern Nigeria, the impact of out-of-school children has been alarming.
Now, to ensure the uneducated understand the latest happenings within each community, our next guest has taken the bull by the horns to break down critical stories and news using comic yet detailed explainers in Hausa language. His videos have continued to demand accountability while exposing the greed and corruption of leaders in power. We will introduce our guest, Dr. Bello Galadanci, after this break.
Mamakin zargin da Senator Natasha take wa Akpoti ya daga hannu. Maga daga hannu ko ga kana kai wai yanzu kai kake mamakin mutumin nan wanda sanda jama'a suke fama da yunwa da talauci za su zanga-zanga ya ce ku je ku ta zanga-zanga mu muna gida muna cin abinci? Ko wannan mutumin ne ka manta sanda ana cikin talauci an ƙara farashin komai mutane suna shan wahala amma yayi subtar baki ya dauka babu kyamara yake cewa wai kowanne sanata dan majalisa ya je duba cikin account ɗinsa an tura masa da ƴan kuɗaɗen addu'a abinda karya doka ne. Ba kai mamakin waɗannan ba? Shi ne aka ringa mamakin don an ce gashi irin abin da yake kokarin yi da Senator Natasha. Shugaban kasan da aka zaba ba shi da hurumin dakatar da gwamnan da aka zaba. Kamar mai gidan da kake haya ne ya saka maka matarka bayan ba shi aura maka ita ba. Tinubu ya dakatar da gwamnan jihar Rivers Fubara wanda kuma yake takaddama da na hannun damansa wato Wike. Wannan abu ne da ya kamata mu mai da hankali a kai saboda zai iya dawowa ya zo shafi mu yadda ba ma tunani. Babu wata dokar ko ta kwana ko da ka ta ɓaci a Najeriya wanda ya ba wa shugaban ƙasa ƙarfi da hurumin dakatar da gwamnan da jama'arsa suka zaɓa har ma da mataimakinsa da kuma 'yan majalisar jiha. Saboda haka wannan yana nufin abubuwa guda uku.
You're welcome back. Now, let's introduce Dr. Bello Galadanci to you. Good morning, Dr. Galadanci, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Good morning. Here it's 3:25. It's afternoon. I hope you guys are doing well.
I think I saw the last video we just played was very funny, and particularly the analogy you said when you said a president cannot suspend a governor. It's like your landlord divorcing your wife for you. There's so many issues that you've shared your thoughts on and shared your commentary on. And the one thing that stands out is the confidence with which you have used to constantly speak against ills in the society, call out bad government and governance. What is it that drives you to constantly do what you do, without fear, without favor? Just being able to constantly hold the government to account in the way that you do?
That's a difficult question. Been to more than 20 countries and having no other home like Nigeria, it's painful to see our country, which is basically the greatest in Africa, underdeveloped, with the most out-of-school children in the world, with an economy that depends mostly on imports, with an agricultural sector that can do really well, but it's almost non-existent. There's so much wrong with Nigeria, and it all comes down to leadership and education. So seeing that our children and grandchildren do not have any other place other than Nigeria, and the education that we are enjoying today was basically put together by people who are much older than us and who don't have much to gain from it other than give us this privilege. So for our children and grandchildren, it's what we do today is what will really determine of, what kind of future they're going to have and the lives that they're going to live. So that's my motivation.
Now, you've personally funded the borehole project in Katsina State, and you've called out the government for failing to provide infrastructure. What was that experience like, and did you get any feedback from the government?
Yes, I did. First of all, the experience, it's not so much different from what we usually do here, except, seeing them screaming and dancing. That was quite touching because every day we take having water for granted. At the middle of the night, you wake up, you drink some water, use the bathroom, you flush. Someone is looking for that, flushing water to drink and wash their bodies. But we have them, and there's millions of people who really do not have that kind of water. So just having to see them, happy to have water that they can drink and use, that was kind of touching, and that kind of, drove it home that there are tons of people who are in trouble, and this is a government failure. So the response, so far, I've heard that the government has moved into the town trying to renovate their hospital and the school. But I haven't touched it yet because I'm still waiting for it to be concluded because it might be politics. Nigeria is a very predictable place. So that's what the experience was like, and this was the response that I've seen. Other than that, I haven't heard anything.
Right. I mean, it's great work that you've done and you've done for these kids. We unfortunately find that northern Nigeria is affected with high numbers when it comes to out-of-school children. And so the question is, what would we say these governors are doing? And it's not just in northern Nigeria, yes, but they're particularly affected. So let's talk about some of the challenges you see that lead to this in terms of the government's response, in terms of maybe societal norms that maybe have pushed back on education being accepted into northern Nigeria as much as it should be.
It's not just the governors. Sometimes, yeah, we really need to hold them accountable. But yesterday, my father sent me some videos, which I'm working on right now. Friday mosque all over northern Nigeria. In Kano, right now, I'm collecting videos, different Friday mosque. After the prayers, when you come out, do you know what you see? Hundreds of out-of-school children, very dirty. They look helpless, begging in groups. I'm working on the video, and it's going to be out very soon. And what is heartbreaking is the people walking right past them. It's very casual. People just, wealthy people, able-bodied people, all kinds of people just walking past it like it's nothing. And that's what it has turned to, nothing. It's nothing. It's like, okay, this is part of reality. And it's not just embarrassing, it's disturbing to imagine the engineers that we could get from those kids, the doctors, the architects, the leaders, because there are so many brains there, and each brain has a gift. So it's not just the government, but us, the people also, we see that, and we just don't say much, we don't do much, we just like, all right, this is part of our reality now, we just have to live with it while it's a living time bomb. So yesterday I was discussing this with my father, and it was just kind of heartbreaking to watch. I'm working on the video, and I'm going to release it very soon, hopefully in the next few days.
Talking about your videos, let's pause for a moment and take a listen to one of your videos, and then we'll come back to you.
All right.
Na fama da matsanancin yunwa. Likitocin mu na Najeriya na gobe da injiniyoyi da malamai a kan naira 33,000 a wata suke rayuwa. Ina naira 77,000 ɗin da aka yi musu alkawari yanzu watanni nawa kenan haka za a bar su a daidai wannan lokaci da farashin buhun shinkafa ya fi abin da ake basu a wata, kuma a wannan halin da ake ciki 'yan siyasa daga gwamnoni har su wajen shugaban kasa suna kashe makudan kuɗi wajen sayan motoci manya-manya da tafiyoyi suna tafiya yawon duniya suna kashe makudan kuɗaɗe ga kuma maka-makan albashin da suke biyan kansu na miliyoyi a wata. Ina 'yan majalisa suke su a Fabio da yake wannan bai shafi 'ya'yansu ba, da yake wannan bai shafi abin da za su samu ba ko bai shafi kujerarsu ba, shine suka shiru ko? In batun Natasha ne da yanzu duka su daga murya har an ɗauki mataki, amma samarin ƙasa ko in ce matasan ƙasa abin da za su rayu ma da shi an ba wannan tunda su sun samu kowa ya rasa. Idan ayyukan yi ne sun gwamnati su ɓata lokaci akan abubuwa marasa amfani da canzawa tituna sunaye da kuɗaɗen da su za su saka cikin aljihunansu, amma buƙatun matasan ƙasa shi wannan ba shine a gabansu a daidai lokacin da sun toshe kunnuwansu sun ki sauraron kiraye-kiraye da
Now, Bello, there's a fine line between satire and advocacy. And defamation, I beg your pardon. Many people would be wondering, are you not scared of what you're doing, especially in an environment that has become increasingly intolerant of dissent? Have you ever had any threats made to you or pushback for what you're doing? It's quite brave of you to be able to call out societal ills in the manner you do.
Well, right now there is an internal war or struggle going on that not a lot of us know about. The millions of NYSC members who are starving. Literally, I've received more than 300 messages from them before I made that video, telling me, they're kind of really horrifying stories. The ones who got ulcer just from starving, there are tons of them. The ones who, they had to do unspeakable things just to get some money so that they could survive. So there are people who really do not have the talent or gift or opportunity or privilege that God has bestowed me with. And so for me, this is not something I shall just enjoy or just take and make money from. No, it's a responsibility. It's a responsibility that God has given me that I have to do something with it, even if it's going to put my life in risk. I mean, what's just one person's life if a million can be liberated, if a million can have the food to eat, the good education to survive and raise their own families? So no, I'm not afraid. Definitely, if they want to shoot me or or use machete to share me into two or three pieces, they should absolutely go for it. I've enjoyed a really good life, and this is just.
We hope that never becomes. We certainly do not hope that would ever be a reality. But yes. Let's now then talk about the NYSC that you've spoken about and the conversations. You've talked about the experiences that they've shared with you. Very recently, a young woman went viral because of the 30 days rant challenge in where she specifically called President Bola Tinubu terrible. Let's get your thoughts on the response of Nigerians to that, as well as the response of the NYSC to that.
Well, unfortunately, Nigeria is practicing democracy. We call ourselves free, but there are so many cases of oppression. And this just reminds me of military regime. Many of the people of my age or younger than me do not really know what it's like to live, during the military regime and how it was very strict and how there was so much oppression. But yeah, people do have rights to come out and speak. And the fact that an NYSC member comes out to, talk of something that is not a lie, it's an obvious fact. And because she called the name of the president who was democratically elected to get a response that is very threatening and harsh, it's very, very, very anti-democratic. Not only that, but also we still have tons of people who really do not understand what is freedom of speech. And they think that her response really warrants punishment. Then that's the reason why we're doing what we're doing right now, to really educate them and to wash their brains, hopefully, so that they could see the light and they could understand that they are in prison and they don't even realize it. This is the way to freedom, and this is the light that we're trying to shine by the grace of God.
Now, Bello, some of your critics argue that your activism is selective, that it's almost like you have a personal vendetta against President Tinubu because it shows up a lot in your videos. Is it because he's the current president? And how would you respond to this criticism?
Well, he has all the power. He has the resources. He has the influence because he's the president. And if he fixes something today, it's people who are going to benefit directly. If today fuel prices go down, if food prices go down, if security goes up, it's the people who are the millions of people. So there's nothing personal here. It's just we are going straight to the source of power, straight to the person who can really make the decisions that could affect the lives of people. Why would we go to the opposition when they're on the side? They have not much to do. Going after them while we have limited time and resources and energy is just it's pointless. We go to the people who can really make an effort and who can really listen, hopefully, and do something about it directly. And that's the beauty of this. Recently, like Kaduna, for example. Yes, sir.
Does your background in journalism influence, how does it contribute to your comic? I mean, your ex-BBC and Voice of America. Many people will be quite surprised that you're doing this now. How much has it contributed to your material and the way you deliver?
There are a lot. First of all, is the work ethic. It's not easy to every day wake up and say, okay, I'm going to find one issue and we're going to work on it and we're going to find, we want to educate people on it. And many folks usually get tired. It's not something that is easy. So it really takes a few years of just doing this every day for one to get very comfortable with doing it. Not only that, but also, information gathering methods. I've learned that from BBC and VOA, and I'm really lucky to be using some of that right now. And also, speaking, public speaking, the confidence to speak, and the ability to see things in a much deeper way, not on the surface, to understand, the psychology of politicians and also our people, and to be able to, bring the two different dots to make a line. I think that all comes from journalism, and I'm very lucky and grateful to, do that before.
All right, great. Well done on that. You've spoken about so many pressing and trending issues in Nigeria, from the state of emergency in Rivers State, the defection of Sanusi. We've seen, in fact, looking through your timeline, I can see you've talked about the NYSC. Yeah. You even made reference to Sheyi Tinubu. You've talked El Rufai's defection, I beg your pardon. So of all the conversations you've had to explore in the most recent times, I'm going to put you on the spot. What would you say have been the top 3 most annoying conversations that you've had to share?
The most annoying conversations is the one about Sheyi Tinubu after I'm asking, the son of the president moving together with a convoy and with security, obviously state resources, with, sharing rice to people. Where is that money coming from? And having to see the response from many people in the north who were complaining that we are hungry, we are tired of irresponsible leaders. They are the ones coming back to attack me, saying, oh, he has all the money, why do you care? At least he's sharing something to people, and what are you doing? That was the most annoying. That was the most annoying, because that was the same strategy that was used to have President Tinubu elected. And now it's been used on them, and they don't see it because they have, a spoon of tasteless rice in their mouths. That was really, really annoying. I think that was the first one. The second one, the El Rufai one, was kind of annoying too, because they really think that, a new party, somebody defecting there, already that makes them the good guys. And they've forgotten what happened with Buhari. That's the issue here. They've forgotten what happened with Buhari. He kept moving from party to party, saying, I'm the champion of the people, I'm the champion of the poor, I'm gonna, make life better, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And then after 4 to 8 years, many people died, many people suffered, many people got poor, and nothing got better. And so I'm trying to create some kind of, it's okay for you to follow El Rufai, but at the same time, it's very important that you are cautious. So people didn't want to do that, and they just want to follow blindly again. And I'm like, all right, we've seen something similar to this in the past, and we just want to make sure that right now, as a teacher, I got you covered. You know you have all the information you need, so in the future you can definitely reflect, and if it's time to regret or time to praise yourself. So I think I can just mention these two for now.
All right, I think those two will work, and thank you so much for sharing them with us. Thank you for your time, and kudos on the work that you do. We look forward to seeing your incoming video as well.
Absolutely.
Dr. Bello Galadanchi, have a wonderful rest of the day, and well done.
Thank you very
Thanks for talking to us. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Right, now one of the things that he's complained about, of course, will be the declaration of state of emergency in Rivers State. And he's not the only one complaining about it. The lawyers are complaining. The citizens themselves are complaining. A number of them have taken to the street. We have lead figures like Hilda Dokubo and Ibinabo Fiberesima who have spoken strongly against this declaration. Now let's take a look at this video.
In the States. Yes. We found peace finally. And then today you come out and you see army people driving around like there's something going on that is wrong. This is not right. This is not right. We are at peace. Let our children, let our families be at peace. Let people go to work at peace. All these army people driving about, this is not right. This is not right. This is not right. Our governor is peaceful. We love him. Leave us in peace. What is all this? Emotion is not in politics, we agree, but we want peace. We want peace. This is too much to us. This is not right.
Your name now?
Yeah, I moved back to this state. I ran away before.
There you have it. The biggest conversation of the country right now is the emergency situation in Rivers State, the declaration of a state of emergency. Olive Amodi will be telling us what Nigerians are saying with regards to this after this break. Do stay with us.
So as I start reading the tweets, please zoom out, please. It's full screen should show. This is 2 times.
Alright, no.
So they should be alternating from me to the tweet. Once I finish the tweet, they can come back to me to get my reaction. Thank you. No, he needs the full screen. You're not putting the full screen. Why are we cutting it out? This is not our framing normally. Okay, can we No, because this end is not showing. No, maybe just at that edge.
Go.
Okay, so I can stay here. I can start in the middle and then walk to the body project. My eyes look so pale.
They will flash the stuff on screen.
They will put it.
Let them put it now.
Guys, please, can you?
Let them put it on the screen so that we know the...
Help to put this thing. What we showed here. Okay. So as I'm talking, you can then put the full tweet on screen. Okay. I won't move. Don't worry. I will stay here. What Nigerians are saying is here where we share what your thoughts are on some of the biggest stories. Today we're looking at Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, who is not relenting in sharing her story and telling her truth. Recall that she first made the allegations against Senate President Godswill Akpabio on television. She's granted other television interviews from Sky News to BBC, where she's given several instances of the Senate President harassing her, making snide remarks and making flirtatious or sexual remarks to her. And then she's of the opinion that her suspension is not necessarily because she refused to move seats, but it's because she had criticized the Senate President. In fact, she said, how is it coincidence? Is it really coincidence that on the day she submitted a sexual allegation petition, the very next day, she's suspended for 6 months? So it feels like she's that bone that people are unable to swallow. You recall how very fiercely this woman fought during her elections when the roads were broken leading to her polling unit. So she fought her way through to her seat, and she's still fighting. Now, yesterday, reports reaching us were that there was a move to recall Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan by her constituents. And there was a video that was alleged to be a video of people who were gathered together to recall her. However, in several other videos we saw, it then revealed that that wasn't the case, that these people were misled. Let's take a look at this video of this man explaining what brought him there and how we all got to this place.
Early morning, this early morning we were informed that we should come for an empowerment. When we get to the seat, we are asked to bring our voters card and the VIN, the number there. So we now ask why, because we heard that we should come for the empowerment. So they gave us a form to fill. You fill with your VIN and pen your signature. Then most of us will refuse that we cannot do that because we don't know that an empowerment can be done in this way. So we now left the seat.
Are you here for the recall of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan?
No, sir, we are not. We are here for an empowerment.
But we are not aware about the recall by some group of APC.
No, not at all. No. So we are here for an empowerment. We are not supposed to be here for an empowerment. And we are given an instruction to come with our voters card. So that was the instruction given to us that we should be here with our voters card.
Now, these are just allegations about what is happening in Kogi State. So if you're wondering why, they actually need to sign, it's one of the first steps to recall a senator, where the voters in that constituency have to come together, sign a petition. More than half of those who voted in that constituency have to sign a petition that will be submitted to the INEC president, who will then verify the signatures, and then they can take the next steps once they can see that the constituents no longer have a vote of confidence in their representative. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Now, all these allegations are should and still will be investigated. However, when this news broke on social media, Nigerians shared their thoughts, and we're now going to X to see what Nigerians are saying about the situation. Our first tweet is from Ms. Pell. And in this tweet, Ms. Pell says, same way they are queuing up for peanuts to recall Natasha, same way some Nigerians will queue up for rice and 5K in 2027 to sell their conscience. We are not ready. And the conversation we had just concluded for this segment, if you remember, Dan Bello Galadanchi had also shared his thoughts on this, saying he was very upset to see the son of the president sharing rice, 50,000 naira, and basically just harping on the mentality of people not being able to fight for their vote, fight for their democracy, and to be led by, peanuts, money, rice, and all these other things. But then again, that shows what the instrumentality of poverty can do. We move to our next tweet from Ifoma, who says, please, what is Senator Natasha Akpoti's offense? What kind of country are we in? You keep the people poor, then call them together to share their own wealth to them in piecemeal to recall their senator. Poverty is a tool in the hands of Nigerian politicians. Again, highlights what we've been saying. We'll move over from Ifoma's tweet to another tweet. And in this tweet by Wayimi Lube, he says, Kogi people, your life is in your hands. Don't let them recall Senator Natasha Akpoti from a number of the videos that we've seen and the sentiment that we've seen shared on social media by the Kogi people themselves, they don't seem to have lost faith in Senator Natasha Akpoti. In fact, they would argue that this is the most representation they've gotten in a long time. These are some of the conversations and, you know, the sense that we get from people's explanations on social media. And if you are from Kogi, please tweet at News Central TV to let us know your thoughts about this. But moving on to our next tweet from Ikenga, Amadioha is tweeting. It says, same people behind the recall are the same people that's telling you that Nigeria is broke. Those guys are evil. They have no heart. They can spend anything to silence anyone but can't feed their constituents. Our next tweet is from Renew. Renew, of course, says Senator Natasha, PDP. Governor Fubara, PDP. APC systematically weakening the opposition into 2027. What exactly is PDP useful for? Atiku will soon release a statement that he condemns. He should sack whoever is handling that account. And as expected, he did release a statement where he's condemned a number of these. What do you expect him to do? He has to condemn now. Just remind me of Iron Condemn. Now, moving away from that, Blossom Martin says they used Natasha to test the waters of suspending an elected official. Nigerians did nothing. They moved on to the bigger plan. Natasha's 6-month suspension was to test the waters for their bigger plan. And guess what? Nigerians will still do nothing. Blossom Martins isn't the only one tweeting about this. Let's move to the next one. It says, the problem with Nigerian politics is that it is a time waster. Ever since Senator Natasha was suspended, I've not heard the Senate do any other work. River State, same thing. All politics, little governance. This is how they'll be fighting till the next election cycle. And that's from this other tweet. Now, Odiaka Ose says, an APC-sponsored recall to further silence Senator Natasha Akpoti. Meanwhile, the 27 errant lawmakers in Rivers were allowed to be used to carry out a coup in Rivers. Satan and his cohorts are in charge of this country. Please, but these are very, very strong allegations that ought to be investigated, and we do hope that we can get to the bottom of it. Odiaka Ose is not our final tweet. I believe we have another tweet. And, okay, yeah, this is our final tweet, yes. So let us know what your thoughts are. Should this be investigated? Of course it should be investigated. We should get to the root of this. Not just investigated, because we want to know who has done it, but we also need to ensure that if we find out that there are people indeed that have orchestrated the fraudulent attempt at recalling Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, that they be brought to justice, they be brought to face the wrath of the law. Because indeed, it's nothing short of embarrassing, Benga.
Absolutely, and it's very embarrassing and tragic. And look, I hate to burst a bubble. No one is going to investigate anything, and she's against very powerful forces. But I'm happy this is in the limelight.
But what are they afraid of? It's a question. What are they afraid of? Why?
It's a battle of egos. They just don't like someone that is brave to speak enough to speak up. So they want to silence her.
Well,
that's it.
Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan does not look like someone that can be silenced. She will definitely not go down without a fight. As we can see, she's fighting. And we hope that we can come to a conclusion in the nearest few days, weeks, something that would involve her being heard. If you say nothing happened, if you say you did not do anything, if you say that she's just making up situations, give her fair hearing. All the story about them, suspending her because of the seating allocation to the world. It's not looking fair. It's not looking sincere.
Exactly.
It's making us look bad.
Quite embarrassing too.
Very embarrassing.
But tomorrow is Friday. Thank God it's Friday. We'll see you all tomorrow. It's mixed feelings. When it's weekend, I'm sad I can't do this. But again, I'm happy that I get to rest.
Are you really sad, Benga?
Kind of sad.
You don't lie on national television.
A little bit.
All right, thank you so much, Nigerians, for joining us. Remember to continue the conversations on social media at News Central TV, and thank you to all our guests. Thank you to our viewers. We'll see you again tomorrow. I am Olive Emodi.
And I'm Benga Bora. Bye.
Have a lovely day.